Hey, besties and bosses. So I know now from doing this before, it says it's streaming on Facebook. It shows me, it takes me a little second to see that we're streaming, but I know we're probably streaming already. So happy Tuesday. I'm excited to chat with you. Those of you who hang with me regularly know we've got a little bit of a different background than usual. Can you see the fireplace here? I am upstate. Let's see. Oh yeah, we are live. This is exciting. I am upstate at my parents up in Watkins Glen, New York. It is like you can't see the other way. It's too dark where I'd turn the camera around. It's beautiful. I'm like all in trees here. We had snow yesterday, so it's like really pretty snowstorm. But all of my Texas people will appreciate this. Right before going live, had a space heater plugged in, and this is kind of like an old farmhouse. So I think just the electricity and the circuits aren't the same as when I'm in the city, and completely blew out the power. And not quite the same as being out without power and water for so long, but literally 5 minutes before going live. So kind of a funny thing figuring out the breakers, but we have power, we are live, and we are going to have a conversation all about all the things, but we will chat sales today. So what I want to talk about is 2 secrets my clients know about using their content to overcome objections. So you have to tell me how you feel about selling, how you feel about objections. I know because I hear this from clients all the time. I also know my personal experience when it comes to sales and mastering the art of what I like to call heart-centered sales. I know before I really mastered sales and came up with a process that felt good for me, and what I teach my clients now and support them with, sales felt like such a daunting, overwhelming, confusing thing. I know because I hear from clients all the time. It's like they're downloading one course after another and reading the books. I made a joke in the email that went out to this. Maybe you've like downloaded Zig Ziglar's like 18-part audio course on this, because I know that's a real thing y'all do, said with love. And what I find is the more you consume and learn about sales, sometimes almost the more confusing it is. And I also know when it comes to sales and selling, I think there's quite a few hurdles, and I think a lot of things that can come up for my clients is definitely mindset related. But I think just making sure we're still live here. I think one of the biggest challenges and things that can trip people up is navigating objections. Even that phrase, that term, I think can get people so in their head. I know I always want to keep it real with you. Full disclosure, when I first started in business, I thought objections was like this super secret, like there was like something out there I needed to find in terms of like how to overcome objections. And I had such a thing around like, I need to figure out this thing. Like there was a thing I needed to know. And I had such a mindset thing around it. And I know it's something that kicks up a lot for clients. So I know this and I wanted to support you all with it. And what I thought would be really great to chat about today is to talk about some of the mindset and just a way I think about sales and what I talk to my clients about in terms of how we approach sales. And then to talk about approaching and navigating objections through your content. I'm sure that's something you've heard before, but I want to break down I'm calling them secrets, but 2 things my clients do that works really well for them. I'll give some examples just in terms of how I'm seeing this work for them currently, just as in the last few weeks, even how this is working for my clients to really overcome objections before they even get on the phone with someone, and how this is helping them increase their sales and the money they're making exponentially. If you're live, say hi. I always like to know who's here. I'm just seeing, double checking we're all set up properly. Let me know if you're live. Let me know if you have questions when we're going throughout this. I do sometimes have a lag with Zoom, so know that I will just kind of toggle back and forth and make sure I'm getting your questions. I want to make sure I am here to support you. And while I'm on the point of questions, because I love questions, little reminder for you all. I'll announce this at the end, but I do have a free Q&A coming up that I want to make sure you sign up for if you want. And if there's anything specific you want me to address, talk about, teach in a live. Our live stream next week actually comes from a question someone emailed me. I want to make sure these are for you. So feel free if there's something specific you want me to touch on, I will make sure that we add it to the lineup. Hey, Steph. Hey, Heather. Nice to have you all on here. Yay. I love seeing friendly faces. Okay, so let's talk all the fun stuff. Let's talk a little bit first. So before we dive into these 2 ways that you can tackle, handle, navigate objections, however you want to think about this in your content, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about how I think about selling, how I think about sales, and just some things to understand when it comes to overcoming objections and just overall how to make your sales process so much easier so it's not feeling like such a hurdle all the time. you've probably, if you've taken my free sales course, which I'll make sure we link to if you haven't signed up for it, but if you've taken my free sales course, if you've hung out with me before, I'm sure you've heard me say this phrase or talk about it this way, but I'm going to say it again for those of you who are new to my world. The way I think about selling, and I think this is really important to hear because it takes out all of the ick and the bro marketing, and it really helps put you into the role of service provider, and this will help you sell more. The way I think about selling and our job, our role on the sales side of things is to facilitate an experience, a conversation, maybe through emails, maybe through the phone, but to facilitate a conversation with another human to help them get clear on what it is they want. That's part one. And then to help them to make a clear, informed, empowered decision to move towards what it is they want. So again, I'm just going to repeat this. It's to help someone get clear on what they want. Do they want what you have to offer? Do they not want what you have to offer? Help them get clear on what they want, and then help them to make a clear, informed, empowered decision to move towards what it is they want. If they want what you want, then part of our job, if we're thinking about sales from this heart-centered space and coming from a place of service, is to help someone in front of you make that decision to move towards what it is they want. That would be buying your product or service. If they don't want what you want, it's helping them get clear enough to make that clear decision to say, hey, this isn't for me, to move away from your offer towards what it is they want, which would be that no. What I find is really disempowering is when someone can't make a decision and they're stuck in indecision, or when they feel like a decision is forced upon them. I think a lot of old school sales tactics, it's almost like, how do we convince or manipulate or trick someone into buying, which never feels good on either side. That's not what we're talking about here at all. And I think that's when objections can feel super crunchy and heavy, because when you're taking an approach from some of those old school sales tactics, which really don't work that well. This is not how human psychology works, how buying psychology works. But what happens there is those processes are asking you to do when there's an objection is really treating it almost like we hear the word objection, like it's a combat, like it's an argument. And your job now is to defend what you're selling or to convince someone something they don't want. I'm that doesn't feel good on either side. That doesn't work. That's not how you get repeat clients or build a long-term sustainable business. Beautiful thing about human psychology and how we act as humans, we always want to feel like we're in control, right? We want to feel like we're making our own decisions and we want to move towards what it is we want. Most of us don't want to feel like we're being coerced or pushed into anything. In fact, this is a little side note, but I think it'll be helpful for everyone to hear that this isn't just feel good, touchy-feely stuff. They've done brain scans when people think they're going to be sold to in the traditional sense, and it actually kicks up the fight or flight. When you do a brain scan, it'll highlight what part of the brain is activated, and it will highlight the fight or flight response area of the brain, which I believe would be the amygdala, just to get super nerdy on y'all, which means if someone is in fight or flight, that's the reptilian part of the brain. That is the part of brain that is fight, flight, or freeze. That means they're also not in their decision-making part of their brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. Y'all don't need to know all of this, but I think it's just fun to see there is science behind the feel-good stuff, and it's not only feel-good, it's literally based in science and how our brain works. Your prefrontal cortex, that's part of what makes us human. That's where we make decisions. That's where we make forward moving decisions. That's where we problem solve. That's where we do our creative thinking. So if you're coming from this old school approach of trying to sell and having someone feel sold to, and they're in that other part of their brain, they're not responding from the decision-making part of their brain. They're not responding from the forward-thinking part of their brain. They're responding from a fear response, which is fight, flight, or freeze. So I think that's really helpful to remember, because when we're navigating objections, we want to check in with, is someone feeling sold to? If so, we want to navigate that objection, going off on a tangent here a little bit, but I think this is important. We're going to want to navigate that objection very differently, because we want to understand they're having a fear response versus if someone's not feeling sold to and we're helping them get clear on what they want and we're helping them make that decision together. They're going to be in a different part of their brain, and we can really work through whatever's coming up, whatever objections are coming up in a decision-making way. So I'm going to share how we do this through content, but I want you to understand this part of it, because I think this helps us just look at the whole sales experience a little differently, and helps us understand at any given point when objections are coming up, what's really going on. And so we can approach objections instead of I now need to convince, I now need to sell, I now need to defend. We can always look at objections as this is just another part of the decision-making process. And my job as someone on the sales side is to help someone make that clear decision and then to move towards what it is they want. That's my job. My job is not to convince. My job is not to help them. I don't even love the phrase overcome objections, even though I used it in the title here because it's how we speak about this, because that to me feels almost like convincing or manipulating versus how do we really help someone navigate the decision-making process. So let me know if that makes sense to you. I want to share. Oh, these pop up so, I don't know why these pop up late. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Laura. She says, finally caught you live. So nice to have you here. Hi, Marissa. Oh, I love all of you. Let me know if this is making sense or if you have any questions. I know this is a little, I'm like given the backstory before we dive into these. So feel free if you have questions, thoughts, reflections. I always love hearing them. So that's really the mindset, the approach to sales I teach my clients, that we talk about, that we think about when we're talking about sales. So I want us to have that as the framework as we're talking about these ways to use your content to overcome objections. The other thing I think is really helpful to remember before we dive into these two secrets that I want you to think about when we think about selling, and when we think about selling from this heart-centered approach based in psychology, and we think about how do humans buy, how do we interact, how do humans make decisions? When I think about sales, I'm always thinking about sales as a process with a front end, a sales, the point of transaction, a back end where you're serving the client. I always think about it as a process. It's a little bit protracted. One of the reasons I think so many people have challenges